the heart of Gorilist, a nation where martial prowess was woven into the very fabric of its society, there was one event that stood above all others, a tradition that celebrated the apex of combat mastery. The annual heavyweight championship, a grand spectacle orchestrated by the military, was not just a competition. It was a cultural phenomenon that encapsulated the values and spirit of Gorilist civilization. The championship had become more than just a series of fights. It was an arena where legends were born and where the might of nations was on full display. Every year, the best fighters from the four most powerful nations, Gorilist, Leonese, Tajara, and Birais, gathered to compete. It was a ritual of strength, honor, and strategy, one that drew spectators from all corners of the world. This was the stage where warriors proved their mettle and where the victors were celebrated as heroes of their nations. As the Coliseum gates creaked open, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. The stands filled rapidly with eager spectators, their anticipation palpable. The Coliseum itself was a marvel of architecture, a massive structure designed to echo the roars of the crowd and amplify the intensity of the battles within. Every seat was equipped with a touch screen, a modern twist in a world steeped in tradition, allowing the audience to actively participate in the event. Despite the grandeur of the occasion, there was a notable absence this year. The nations of Hyaenia, Leopardia, and Wolfia, having assessed their fighters as unprepared to face the elite warriors from the larger nations, had withdrawn from the competition. Their absence only heightened the stakes, focusing the attention entirely on the titans from Gorilist, Leonese, Tajara, and Birais. The opening ceremony. The championship began with a spectacular opening ceremony, a blend of military precision and cultural celebration. The Coliseum's floor was filled with performers, dancers, acrobats, and musicians, each act carefully choreographed to symbolize the martial spirit of Gorilist. Flags of the four competing nations were unfurled, their colors vibrant against the stone walls of the arena. As the final notes of the national anthems echoed through the Coliseum, the announcer's voice boomed across the stadium, welcoming the fighters to the arena. The crowd erupted in cheers as the combatants stepped into the light, each one a paragon of physical prowess and combat skill. These were not just athletes, they were warriors, trained in the art of war, representing the hopes and pride of their nations. The spectators' role. What set this championship apart from any other sporting event was the involvement of the spectators in the decision-making process. Each viewer became a judge, their opinions directly influencing the outcome of the battles. The touch screens at every seat displayed the names and images of the fighters, along with real-time stats and analysis. With a simple touch, spectators could cast their vote, deciding which fighter had shown superior skill, strategy, and sportsmanship. This interactive system was more than just a novelty, it was a reflection of the deeply democratic values that underpinned Gorilist society. The people's voice was paramount, and in the Coliseum, that voice determined the fate of the fighters. As the matches progressed, the tension in the air grew, the weight of each decision resting on the shoulders of thousands of spectators. Adding to the drama was the horn, a device held by each fighter's representative. The sounding of the horn signified a request to stop the fight, usually because the opponent's attack was deemed excessively aggressive or dangerous. This added a layer of strategy to the battles. Fighters had to balance their aggression with caution, knowing that crossing the line could cost them the match. Tiger versus Lion. The Coliseum buzzed with a feverish energy, the excitement of the crowd reaching a crescendo as the first bout of the heavyweight championship drew near. Every seat was filled, and the air was thick with anticipation, as if the very walls of the arena were vibrating with the collective heartbeat of the thousands gathered. The annual tradition of the championship had always been a grand spectacle, but this year, with the stakes higher than ever, the atmosphere was electric. The fighters stood in opposite corners of the arena, each one an embodiment of raw power and skill honed through years of rigorous training. On one side was Zama, a lion of formidable size and strength, his golden mane catching the light as he stared down his opponent with a fierce intensity. Zama's reputation as a master of Muay Thai preceded him, and his powerful limbs promised devastating strikes. His eyes, piercing and determined, reflected a deep-seated confidence born from countless victories. Across from him, Husey, a tiger of sleek and agile build, crouched low in preparation, his muscles coiled like springs ready to unleash their potential. Husey was known for his unmatched speed and cunning, traits that had earned him a fearsome reputation on the battlefield. His preferred discipline was Taekwondo, a martial art that complemented his natural agility, allowing him to deliver lightning-fast kicks that could topple even the mightiest of foes. His amber eyes gleamed with a mix of focus and anticipation, his striped fur rippling with tension. The Coliseum's massive screen displayed their stats, and the crowd, already familiar with the legends of these two warriors, erupted into cheers and chants, each side backing their favorite fighter. It was clear that this match would be one for the ages, a clash between two of the greatest fighters the championship had ever seen. The referee, a stoic figure clad in black, raised his hand, signaling the fighters to prepare. The arena fell into a hushed silence, the air thick with anticipation. Then, with a sharp movement, the referee brought his hand down, and the bell rang out, echoing across the vast expanse of the Coliseum. Round 1, the opening strikes. Zama was the first to move, his massive frame surging forward with the explosive power of a lion on the hunt. He aimed a devastating Muay Thai cross kick directly at Husey's face, intending to end the match quickly with a display of overwhelming force. But Husey was ready, his reflexes sharp as a razor. With a graceful sidestep, he evaded the kick, the air whistling as Zama's powerful leg cut through empty space. The crowd gasped in unison, and then roared in approval as the tiger displayed his agility. Husey wasted no time, countering with a Taekwondo Baturio Chejai kick, his leg slicing through the air with the precision of a blade. Zama barely managed to twist his body out of the way, feeling the wind of the kick brush past his mane. Fast, but not fast enough, tiger. Zama growled, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to reverberate through the arena. He circled Husey, his eyes never leaving his opponent, searching for an opening. Husey smiled, a fleeting expression that spoke volumes. "We'll see about that, lion. You'll need more than brute strength to bring me down." The two circled each other warily, each aware of the other's capabilities. Zama, with his raw power, knew he had to close the distance to neutralize Husey's advantage in speed. Husey, on the other hand, was focused on maintaining his distance, using his agility to wear Zama down with quick, precise strikes. Round 2, the exchange. The fight intensified as the minutes ticked by, with neither combatant willing to give an inch. Zama lunged forward again, this time leading with a feint, a low kick meant to draw Husey's attention downward. The tiger took the bait, shifting his weight to avoid the attack, only to find Zama's true strike, a powerful right hook, aimed directly at his ribs. The punch connected with a thud, driving the air from Husey's lungs. He staggered back, momentarily winded, but recovered quickly, his mind racing as he reassessed his approach. Zama pressed the advantage, his strikes coming in rapid succession, a flurry of jabs and hooks that had Husey on the defensive. The crowd roared with excitement, their cheers echoing off the stone walls of the Coliseum. Each blow, each evasion, was met with gasps and applause, the spectators fully immersed in the battle unfolding before them. But Husey was far from finished. He waited for the right moment, allowing Zama to tire himself out with his relentless assault. And then, like a cobra striking, Husey found his opening. With a sudden burst of speed, he launched himself into the air, twisting his body in a mid-air spin that delivered a devastating Taekwondo Baturio Chejai kick aimed at Zama's head. Zama saw it coming, but it was too late to fully dodge. The kick landed with a resounding crack, sending the lion reeling backward. The crowd erupted into a frenzy, the sound of their cheers almost deafening as Husey landed gracefully on his feet, ready to press his advantage. Round 3, the turning point. Zama shook his head, trying to clear the stars from his vision. The kick had been powerful, but it would take more than that to bring him down. With a roar of defiance, he charged forward once more, his fists like hammers as he unleashed a barrage of strikes aimed at Husey's torso. Husey danced around Zama, dodging most of the blows, but even he couldn't evade them all. A powerful left hook caught him in the side, the force of the impact making him grunt in pain. But Husey was nothing if not resilient. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stay on his feet, to keep moving. Not bad, lion, Husey panted, a bead of sweat trickling down his brow. But you'll need to do better than that. Zama grinned, his teeth flashing in the light. You're tough, I'll give you that. But this ends now. With that, Zama lunged forward, closing the distance in a heartbeat. He brought his knee up in a crushing knee strike aimed at Husey's midsection. Husey tried to dodge, but Zama was faster this time. The knee connected with a bone-jarring impact, sending the tiger sprawling to the ground. The crowd gasped, the air thick with tension as they watched Husey struggle to his feet. Zama loomed over him, ready to deliver the finishing blow. But as he raised his fist, ready to strike, Husey's eyes flashed with determination. In a desperate move, Husey rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding Zama's downward strike. In the same fluid motion, he kicked out with both legs, sweeping Zama's feet out from under him. The lion toppled to the ground, his fall sending a cloud of dust into the air. Round 4, the final exchange. The arena was electric with anticipation, the roars of the crowd reaching a fever pitch as Zama and Husey squared off for what would be the final exchange. The two fighters were battered, their bodies bearing the marks of their brutal battle. Both knew that this was the moment of truth, the moment that would determine the champion. Zama, the lion, had dominated the earlier rounds with his raw power and relentless aggression. He had pushed Husey to his limits, landing crushing blows that would have felled a lesser opponent. But Husey, the tiger, had proved his resilience time and again, his agility and cunning allowing him to survive where others would have fallen. This is it, Zama growled, his voice thick with determination. His muscles tensed, ready to unleash one final assault. No more games, tiger. Husey nodded, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His amber eyes, though tired, gleamed with a fierce determination. Agreed, he replied, his voice low but steady. Let's finish this. With a roar that shook the very foundations of the Coliseum, Zama lunged at Husey, his powerful legs propelling him forward like a missile. He aimed a bone-crushing uppercut at Husey, putting every ounce of his strength into the blow. This strike was meant to end the fight, to leave no doubt about his dominance. But Husey was ready. In the split second it took for Zama to close the distance, the tiger's mind raced, calculating his next move. He knew that meeting Zama's power head-on would be a mistake. He had to rely on his speed, his agility, to turn the tide. At the last possible moment, Husey ducked under Zama's swinging fist, his body moving with the fluid grace of a predator in its prime. The lion's punch whistled past Husey's head, hitting nothing but air. In that same instant, Husey sprang into action, his muscles coiled like springs. Zama's eyes widened in surprise as Husey, crouching low, exploded upward with a powerful kick. The tiger's leg struck Zama square in the chest with a force that belied his smaller frame. The impact sent shockwaves through the lion's body, knocking the wind out of him and lifting him off his feet. The crowd gasped in unison, their collective breath held as they watched Zama stumble back, struggling to regain his balance. But Husey wasn't done. He pressed his advantage, refusing to let the lion recover. Moving with blinding speed, he unleashed a flurry of strikes, kicks and punches that seemed to come from every direction at once. Zama, reeling from the unexpected assault, did his best to block and parry, but Husey's attacks were too fast, too relentless. The tiger's fists and feet found their mark again and again, each blow chipping away at Zama's defenses, sapping his strength. The crowd was on its feet now, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a knife. Every eye was locked on the two fighters, every cheer and shout a testament to the intensity of the battle. It was clear that the momentum had shifted, Husey was now in control. With a final, desperate effort, Zama tried to mount a counterattack. He swung a massive right hook at Husey, aiming to land one last powerful blow. But Husey was ready. The tiger dodged to the side, and as Zama's punch sailed harmlessly past, Husey saw his opening. Summoning the last reserves of his strength, Husey spun on his heel, his body moving with the precision of a master fighter. He delivered a devastating spinning back kick that caught Zama square in the jaw. The lion's head snapped back, his body crumpling to the ground in a heap. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The entire Coliseum fell into a stunned silence, the only sound the ragged breathing of the two fighters. Zama lay motionless on the ground, dazed and unable to rise. Husey, his chest heaving, stood over him, victorious. The referee quickly stepped in, raising Husey's arm high as the crowd erupted into a deafening roar. The Tiger had done it. Against all odds, he had defeated the mighty Zama. The victory was his. As the cheers of the crowd washed over him, Husey looked down at his fallen opponent. He could see the pain and exhaustion etched into Zama's face, and despite the fierce competition, Husey felt a deep sense of respect for the lion who had pushed him to his limits. With a gesture that spoke volumes, Husey extended a hand to Zama. The lion, still reeling from the defeat, looked up at the tiger. For a moment, pride and anger flashed in his eyes, but then, with a resigned sigh, Zama reached out and clasped Husey's hand. The crowd's cheers grew even louder as the two warriors acknowledged each other's strength. As they left the arena, side by side, it was clear that this battle had been more than just a fight. It had been a test of will, a contest of hearts and minds as much as of bodies. And though Husey had emerged the victor, both fighters left the arena with their heads held high, their rivalry transformed into mutual respect. Gorilla versus Bear. The arena buzzed with an energy so intense it was almost tangible as thousands of spectators filled the seats, their eyes locked onto the center stage where two of the mightiest creatures of the animal kingdom were about to clash. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that sent shivers down the spine and left everyone on the edge of their seats. Today, it was not just another battle, it was a showdown between two titans, a gorilla and a bear, representing two of the most powerful nations in their world, Gorillist and Bearize. The spotlight first fell on Guri, a towering bear who had earned his fearsome reputation through countless victories in the wrestling ring. His size was intimidating, his muscles rippling beneath his thick fur as he moved with a grace that belied his bulk. Guri was a master of grappling, his strength unparalleled in the art of wrestling. He was the pride of Bearize, and many believed that once he got his paws on an opponent, there was no escape. But across from him stood a figure equally formidable, Ruda, the embodiment of Gorillist's might. Unlike Guri, who relied on sheer physical dominance, Ruda combined raw power with a mastery of martial arts that few could match. His training in Taekwondo and other martial disciplines had turned him into a lethal force, his strikes as precise as they were devastating. The gorilla's massive frame exuded confidence, his every movement deliberate and calculated. His muscles, honed from years of training, were coiled like springs, ready to unleash their power at a moment's notice. As the two fighters entered the ring, the crowd's roar reached a fever pitch. Spectators waved flags, chanted names, and pounded the air with their fists, each side fervently supporting their champion. The tension was palpable, a thick undercurrent that coursed through the stadium, as everyone knew they were about to witness a battle for the ages. The bell rang, its sharp peal slicing through the cacophony, signaling the start of the match. For a moment, there was a brief, almost eerie silence as the two titans sized each other up, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Round 1, the opening gambit. It was Guri who acted first, his powerful legs propelling him forward with surprising speed for a creature of his size. His strategy was clear, close the distance and trap Ruda in a bone-crushing bear hug, a move that had secured victory for him countless times. His massive arms reached out, ready to envelop the gorilla in a grip that could shatter bones. But Ruda was not to be caught so easily. With a fluidity that belied his massive frame, the gorilla sidestepped Guri's advance, his eyes sharp and focused. As Guri's arms closed around nothing but air, Ruda countered with lightning speed, his right leg snapping out in a Taekwondo Dalio Cheijai kick aimed directly at Guri's chest. The impact was like a thunderclap. Guri staggered back, the force of the blow momentarily disrupting his balance. The crowd gasped, the sound of the kick reverberating through the arena like a crack of a whip. But Guri was no novice. He quickly regained his footing, his expression hardening into one of steely determination. He was not going to be taken down by a single blow. Impressive, Guri rumbled, his voice deep and resonant. But it will take more than a fancy kick to bring me down. Ruda said nothing, his eyes locked onto his opponent. He could see that Gyuri was tough, very tough, but that didn't deter him. If anything, it fueled his determination. This was the challenge he had been preparing for his entire life. Round 2, strength versus speed. Gyuri, now more cautious, circled Ruda, looking for an opening. His strategy shifted. He would need to wear the gorilla down, sap his strength, and then move in for the kill. But Ruda was not giving him any chances. The gorilla moved with the precision of a seasoned fighter, his movements calculated, his eyes never leaving Gyuri. Seeing no opening, Gyuri decided to force one. He feigned a step back, drawing Ruda in, then suddenly lunged forward, his massive paw swiping in a powerful arc aimed at Ruda's head. But Ruda anticipated the move, ducking just in time to avoid the blow. As he rose, Ruda spun with incredible speed, his elbow crashing into Gyuri's face with a bone-crushing force. The bear let out a roar of pain, stumbling backward, blood trickling from his nose. The crowd erupted into cheers, the excitement of the battle pushing them to the edge of their seats. But Gyuri was far from defeated. Wiping the blood away with a snarl, he shook his head and charged again, this time with even more determination. Ruda was ready. As Gyuri closed the distance, Ruda launched himself into the air, his powerful legs propelling him high above the bear's head. With a precise kick aimed downward, he caught Gyuri on the shoulder, the force of the blow driving the bear to one knee. Gyuri grunted, but instead of retreating, he used the momentum to his advantage. With a powerful shove, he pushed himself back up, his massive paw slamming into Ruda's midsection as the gorilla landed. The impact was staggering, sending Ruda skidding across the ring, his breath forced from his lungs. For a moment, the crowd was silent, unsure of what would happen next. Ruda struggled to his feet, his chest heaving, but his eyes were as determined as ever. He could feel the bruise forming where Gyuri had struck, but he pushed the pain aside. There was no room for weakness here. Strong, Ruda admitted, his voice steady despite the pain. But strength alone won't save you. Gyuri grinned, a fierce glint in his eye. We'll see about that, gorilla. Round 3, the turning point. The two fighters circled each other again, each one feeling the weight of the battle, each one knowing that the next exchange could be the deciding factor. Gyuri knew he needed to end this quickly. Ruda was too fast, too skilled, and the longer the fight went on, the more it would play to the gorilla's strengths. With a roar that shook the arena, Gyuri charged again, his massive arms outstretched, ready to crush Ruda in a final, decisive grapple. But Ruda was prepared. As Gyuri closed in, the gorilla suddenly dropped to the ground, spinning on his hands and delivering a powerful sweeping kick that caught Gyuri's legs and sent the bear crashing down. The impact shook the ring, dust rising from the ground as Gyuri struggled to regain his footing. But Ruda was relentless. Before Gyuri could fully rise, Ruda was upon him, his fists raining down a barrage of punches with incredible speed and precision. Each blow was aimed with deadly accuracy, targeting Gyuri's vulnerable spots. Gyuri roared in pain and frustration, trying to shield himself from the onslaught, but Ruda was too fast, too relentless. The gorilla's fists moved like lightning, each strike a calculated attempt to wear down the bear's defenses. And slowly but surely, Gyuri began to weaken. The crowd was on their feet now, the noise deafening as they watched the epic struggle unfold. Some cheered for Gyuri, urging him to fight back, while others chanted Ruda's name, sensing that victory was within his grasp. Enough! Gyuri roared, summoning the last of his strength. With a powerful swipe, he managed to push Ruda back, creating a momentary distance between them. But the effort cost him. Gyuri's breath was labored, his movements sluggish. He was nearing his limit. Ruda, sensing that the end was near, didn't give Gyuri a chance to recover. With a burst of speed, he closed the distance, delivering a devastating uppercut that caught Gyuri squarely on the chin. The bear's head snapped back, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. Final moments, victory. The crowd fell silent as Gyuri staggered, his massive body swaying under the force of the blow. And then, with a final, thunderous crash, the bear fell to the ground, the impact shaking the very foundations of the arena. Gyuri lay still, his chest heaving with labored breaths, but he made no move to rise. Ruda stood over him, his own body trembling with exhaustion, but his eyes were filled with the fire of victory. He had done it. He had defeated the mightiest bear in the ring, and the crowd's reaction was immediate and explosive. The Coliseum erupted into cheers, the sound a wave of adulation that washed over Ruda, filling him with a sense of triumph unlike anything he had ever felt. The referee rushed over, raising Ruda's arm high into the air, signaling his victory. The crowd's cheers grew even louder, the chant of Ruda. Ruda! Ruda, echoing throughout the arena. But for Ruda, the victory was not just about defeating Gyuri. It was a testament to his training, his skill, and his unwavering determination. He had faced one of the most formidable opponents the championship had ever seen, and he had emerged victorious. As he stood in the center of the ring, his chest heaving, his body bruised but unbowed, Ruda took in the adulation of the crowd. This was his moment, a moment that would be remembered in the annals of Guerrillist history. But even as the cheers continued, Ruda's mind was already moving forward. This was just one battle, one victory. There would be more challenges ahead, more opponents to face. But for now, Ruda allowed himself to bask in the glory of the moment, knowing that he had proven himself as a true champion. Gyuri, still lying on the ground, slowly opened his eyes, looking up at Ruda with a mixture of respect and resignation. "You're stronger than I thought, Gorilla," he admitted, his voice weak but sincere. Ruda nodded, extending a hand to help the bear to his feet. "You fought well, Gyuri. It was an honor to face you." Gyuri took the offered hand, allowing Ruda to pull him up. The two fighters stood in the center of the ring, the crowd's cheers ringing in their ears, and for a moment, there was a shared understanding between them. They had given everything they had in the ring, and in the end, that was what truly mattered. As the two warriors left the arena, side by side, the crowd continued to cheer, celebrating the spirit of competition and the strength of these two titans. The championship would continue, with new challenges and new battles on the horizon. But for today, Ruda was the champion, his name etched into the legacy of Guerrillist as one of the greatest fighters of his generation. And as he walked out of the arena, the cheers of the crowd still ringing in his ears, Ruda knew that this was just the beginning of his journey, a journey that would take him to even greater heights. The final showdown. The anticipation in the arena was a living, breathing entity, filling every corner of the colossal structure as the spectators leaned forward in their seats, eyes glued to the center ring. The atmosphere crackled with energy, the tension almost suffocating as everyone awaited the clash that would decide the ultimate victor of the heavyweight championship. The two titans of the animal kingdom, a gorilla and a tiger, were about to engage in a battle that would be spoken of for generations. In one corner stood Huzi, the ferocious tiger representing Tajera. His muscles rippled beneath his sleek fur, his eyes narrow and focused, exuding the confidence of a predator at the top of the food chain. Huzi was known for his strategic mind and lethal agility, his reputation as one of the fiercest fighters in the land well earned through countless victories. Today, he was determined to add another title to his list, to be crowned the undisputed champion. Opposite him was Ruda, the mighty gorilla champion of Guerrillist. Taller and broader than Huzi, Ruda's physique was the epitome of raw power. His muscles were like tightly coiled springs, ready to unleash devastating force at a moment's notice. Ruda's eyes held a steely resolve, tempered by respect for the formidable opponent before him. He was not one to underestimate Huzi, but he was also unyielding in his own determination to emerge victorious. The crowd's roar rose to a fever pitch as the bell rang, signaling the start of the match. The two warriors began to circle each other, their movements cautious, each one studying the other with an intensity that bordered on palpable. Every step they took echoed the weight of the stakes, the air thick with the promise of an unforgettable battle. Round 1, the initial clash. Ruda was the first to move, testing the waters with a series of feints and jabs, his fists cutting through the air with precision. Huzi, ever the strategist, didn't fall for the bait, his body weaving gracefully out of reach. The tiger's agility was on full display as he dodged Ruda's attacks, his eyes constantly searching for an opening. Seeing his initial approach failing, Ruda shifted tactics. He planted his feet firmly on the ground, his muscles rippling as he delivered a powerful straight punch aimed at Hughes' midsection. But the tiger was too quick, sidestepping the blow with ease and countering with a swift paw strike aimed at Ruda's face. The gorilla managed to block it just in time, the force of the impact resonating through his arm. "Not bad, Ruda," Hughes taunted, his voice low and menacing. "But you'll need to do better than that if you want to take me down." Ruda's response was a grim smile, his eyes narrowing as he prepared for the next exchange. The initial skirmish had shown him that Hughes was every bit as dangerous as his reputation suggested, but Ruda was not one to back down. He was determined to fight with every ounce of strength and skill he possessed. Round 2, Strategy versus Power. The second round began with Hughes taking the offensive, his movements a blur as he launched a series of rapid strikes at Ruda. The tiger's speed was breathtaking, his paws moving with lethal precision as he targeted the gorilla's vital points. But Ruda's defense was solid, his massive arms blocking and deflecting most of the attacks. Then, with a sudden burst of power, Ruda caught one of Hughes' paws mid-strike, his grip like a vice. Before the tiger could react, Ruda twisted his body and pulled Hughes off balance, swinging him around and slamming him into the ground with a thunderous impact. The crowd gasped, the sound of the tiger's body hitting the floor echoing through the arena. But Hughes was not so easily defeated. Despite the jarring blow, he quickly rolled to his feet, shaking off the dust and blood with a fierce growl. His eyes locked onto Ruda's, burning with a mixture of anger and determination. The gorilla had surprised him with that move, but Hughes was far from finished. "Impressive," Hughes hissed, circling Ruda once more. "But let's see how you handle this." In a flash, Hughes lunged forward, his body twisting in midair as he executed a perfect spin kick aimed at Ruda's head. The gorilla barely had time to raise his arm in defense, the impact sending a shockwave through his body. The force of the blow staggered Ruda, but he managed to stay on his feet, shaking his head to clear the ringing in his ears. The crowd erupted in cheers, the ferocity of the battle leaving them breathless with excitement. The fighters were evenly matched, their strengths counterbalancing each other in a way that made it impossible to predict the outcome. Round 3, the turning tide. The third round saw both fighters stepping up their game. Hughes, realizing that his speed alone might not be enough to bring down Ruda, began to mix his strikes with feints and misdirection, trying to outsmart the gorilla. Ruda, on the other hand, focused on conserving his energy, waiting for the right moment to unleash his full power. The two warriors danced around the ring, their movements a blur of speed and strength. Hughes landed several solid blows on Ruda, his strikes quick and precise. But the gorilla absorbed the hits with a grim determination, his eyes never leaving the tiger. Then, in a split-second decision, Ruda saw his opening. As Hughes moved in for another attack, Ruda feigned a stumble, drawing the tiger in closer. At the last possible moment, Ruda surged forward with a powerful uppercut that caught Hughes squarely on the chin, sending him flying backward. The crowd roared as Hughes hit the ground, but the tiger quickly scrambled back to his feet, his eyes blazing with fury. He had underestimated Ruda's cunning, and now he was paying the price. "You're tougher than I thought, Ruda," Hughes growled, wiping the blood from his mouth. "But this fight is far from over." Ruda simply nodded, his expression unreadable. He knew that the battle was reaching its peak, and that the next few minutes would decide everything. Round 4, the final exchange. The fourth round began with both fighters clearly showing signs of wear and tear. Blood dripped from wounds, breaths came in heavy gasps, and yet, neither was willing to back down. The crowd was on the edge of their seats, every eye in the arena locked onto the two titans as they prepared for what could be the final exchange. Hughes, his anger now fully ignited, launched himself at Ruda with a ferocity that caught the gorilla off guard. The tiger's movements were a blur of claws and fangs, each strike aimed to inflict maximum damage. Ruda struggled to defend himself, the sheer speed and aggression of Hughes' attack forcing him back on the defensive. But Ruda wasn't finished yet. With a roar that shook the arena, he summoned the last of his strength and countered Hughes' onslaught with a series of powerful punches and kicks, each one delivered with precision and force. The two fighters clashed in the center of the ring, neither willing to give an inch. Then, in a moment of desperation, Husey executed a daring move. He feinted a low strike, drawing Ruta's guard downward, then quickly spun and delivered a question mark kick aimed directly at Ruta's head. The gorilla barely managed to block the kick, but the impact was enough to send him stumbling backward, his vision blurring for a moment. Sensing victory within his grasp, Husey pressed the advantage, moving in for the kill. But Ruta, with a final surge of energy, caught the tiger's arm mid-strike and twisted, sending Husey crashing to the ground with a bone-jarring impact. The two fighters lay on the ground, both too exhausted to continue, the crowd holding its breath as the final whistle blew, signaling the end of the match. The decision. The arena was filled with a tense silence as everyone awaited the final decision. The match had been so evenly matched that it was impossible to say who had truly won. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, their eyes darting between the fighters and the judges, waiting to see what would happen next. To ensure fairness, representatives from Leonese and Birais, the countries whose fighters had been eliminated earlier in the competition, were called upon to evaluate the match. The representatives conferred quietly, their faces serious as they weighed the evidence before them. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the representatives reached their decision. The head representative stepped forward, his voice carrying across the silent arena. After careful consideration and review of the match, he announced, "We declare Ruta of Gorillas the winner and the heavyweight champion of the competition." The crowd erupted into cheers, the sound almost deafening as Ruta was declared the champion. But amid the celebration, there was one voice that did not join in. Husey, still on the ground, slowly rose to his feet, his face twisted in anger. "This is a travesty," he roared, his voice filled with fury. "That decision was biased. I demand a rematch." But the decision had been made, and it was final. The representatives stood firm, their faces impassive as they ignored Husey's protests. The crowd, caught up in the excitement of Ruta's victory, paid little attention to the tiger's outburst, their cheers drowning out his words. Ruta, for his part, remained silent, his expression calm as he accepted the decision. He knew that the match had been close, and that Husey had been a formidable opponent. But in the end, the victory was his, and nothing could change that. As the celebration continued, Husey stormed out of the arena, his heart filled with resentment and anger. He vowed that this was not the end, that he would meet Ruta again in another match, and that next time, he would emerge victorious. But for now, the night belonged to Ruta. As he stood in the center of the ring, the cheers of the crowd washing over him, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. He had won, but the true victory lay in the battle itself, in the struggle, the pain, and the strength he had found within himself to keep fighting. And as he thought of Durika, his heart swelled with pride. "I wish I could dedicate this victory to you," he whispered to himself, knowing that this was just the beginning of his journey. The path ahead would be filled with challenges and trials, but Ruta was ready. He had proven himself in the ring, and now he would prove himself in the world beyond.